And we're back with another episode of Franchise My Business, the podcast for franchisors, hosted by franchisors. You know who the hell I am, and so we're just going to get my intro out of the way, and we're going to talk about a guest that I am floored to have on the show today. It was probably about a decade ago, and I heard this gentleman interviewed on a podcast or somewhere, and I heard his story, and I was just like, wow. That's a remarkable type of business to build. That's a remarkable type of individual to build that business. And so this is a guy who's literally worked with Sir Elton John and Elon Musk. He sent people down to the wreck on the Titanic of the seabed. He's closed museums in Florence for private dinners and then had Andrea Bocelli serenade them while they eat their pasta. Isn't that crazy? He's quoted as the real world or the real life Wizard of Oz by Forbes magazine, by Entrepreneur magazine. SDSims is the best-selling author of the book Bluefishing, The Art of Making Things Happen, and Go for Stupid, The Art of Achieving Ridiculous Goals. He's a sought-after coach. He's a top-rated speaker. He's a keynote guy. He's got a badass new mastermind that he's created for himself. I'm done talking. We're going to talk about a guy who's helped the Pentagon, Associations, Harvard. Holy crap. Steve, welcome to the show, my man.
I've got to live up to that now. I'm a little bit shy.
You do. You got to go. You got to not only live up to it, you've been living it. And I know you've been living it.
It's been interesting, but it's always funny when someone kind of reads these kind of things. And of course, you're reading the cherry, the highlights.
Yeah,
they never reveal the amount of times that people say, "Go away." No, you're not doing that. No, you can't come in. But the more you keep trying, but even when you hear that kind of highlight reel, you go, "Oh shit, yeah." And you actually do feel a little bit on a back pedal about it.
Well, it's like we all have this imposter syndrome. If somebody read my bio out loud, I'd be. I'm a modest person. I'd be a little bit embarrassed. I'm like, wow, I really did do that stuff. And when you hear it out loud, it's like, wow, that's pretty cool. But when you're doing the work, you're just doing the work. Like you're not, the rearview mirror is really freaking cool. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your journey, man. And I'm not bullshitting you. Like I wish we knew what podcast it was on. But when I heard your story, I still remember I had a job. I was driving. I was the chief marketing officer. I was driving a 45-minute commute, and I heard this phenomenal interview, and I was like, wow, that is a cool, unique type of business. So before we talk about what you're doing today to help people and entrepreneurs, I want to go back to the beginning with your predecessor firm, Bluefish, and let's just talk about what the hell you did there.
I made an excuse. I was a bricklayer from East London. I never had any money. I never had any successful friends. We didn't have Instagram to show us how inadequate our life was. We had nothing, as far as the digital world that we have today. But I had aggravation and I had curiosity. So I wanted to go out and surround myself with wealthy people. So I tried getting jobs that associated with wealthy people, stockbrokers, security guard, yacht charters, jet charters, jewelry sales. And I was shit at every single one of them. And I ended up being a doorman on a nightclub because God made me big and ugly. So that seemed to work well there. And I just suddenly realized that entrepreneurs, we see things differently. It's like we've eaten the pill and we're in the Matrix. My other two fellow meatheads on the door, all they wanted to do was to save as much blood off their shirt and go home with the hot girl for the night. Me, I suddenly saw a Harvard course on human interaction. I got to see those people that had money and how they behaved, how those people that didn't have money, how they tried to behave. And I saw all of this, and I was getting educated day in, day out, from the front door of a nightclub. And so I realized that, again, big and ugly, why should you want to talk to me? But then I discovered something. If I was the solution to your problem, it didn't matter what I looked like. So I started by going up to people that had money, and I could see them in the club, the people that would pay their bar tab without checking the receipt. And we knew the clubs were ripping them off, but they had they would just pay the bar tab. They didn't even check the receipt. And I thought, And that to me was the pinnacle of affluence, being able
Right.
to pay the bar tab, whatever the fuck it was.
Yep.
And that was the definition of wealth to me at the time. And I just remember going up to people going, hey, are you going to the new nightclub? And they probably didn't even know where it was. And 9 times out of 10, they were like, oh, no, I didn't. And I'd be like, well, look, let me do you a favor. Let me make a call and see if I can get you in. And I started realizing that, again, if I could do something for you up front, then all of a sudden I was your solution. I was a value to you. And now I could have your attention. And so I would, and of course, it went from getting you into nightclubs to getting you into premieres to getting you into red carpets to getting you into Elton John's party to getting you in a Formula One car in Monaco to getting you riding a polo horse in Stade at Cartier. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And my clients got wealthier and wealthier and wealthier to the point that I had the attention of Forbes and all the TV stations all over the planet because my clients, 80% of my clients were billionaires.
Really?
And that was it. So
that's wild.
I was dealing with, Sir Elton John, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, but I was dealing with people from like Korea and Ukraine and Russia and St. Petersburg and from Amsterdam that were wealthier than these people.
Yeah,
but you never heard of them,
Yeah.
And I was always doing it, not because I wanted to walk down the red carpet, but I thought if I can get you a piano lesson with Elton John, then I can take you out to dinner the following day and I can podcast you before podcasts were invented. And I could speak to people and go, hey, when you get someone offer you a deal, what are the stepping stones that you go through to validate whether or not that's a deal you want to take? How do you pick relationships? How do you outsource? How do you raise money for new ventures? I was literally interviewing people and I was getting paid to do this. And then, of course, I'm taking that information and I'm using it in my business and it just grew and grew. So that's what I did. I really enjoyed that business. But I've always said the business I was in was not the business I was in. Everyone saw that I was the VIP, Mr. Fixer, the connector to the richest, most powerful people in the world. Me,
you were in the people business. You were in the people business, man. I mean, you were in the people business. I mean, it was like, dude, if you could relate, because you were doing a lot of like psych ops and stuff, I'm guessing. You call somebody to get into this museum and you've got to win these people over the phone and send them whatever. Like, you just got to get it done. And you can't do that if you suck as a human.
And that was the thing.
Right?
I was just, I just went for it and I realized that's what I was doing. And then I actually got offered the chance to write a book. Didn't think anyone would read it. I wrote the book, and of course, that took off quite mammothly.
That's so cool, man. I love it. I love just hearing people's journeys, like what they've done, founder to founder. Like, what are the crazy things that you've done? And at some point in the past year and a half or so, I started seeing you show up in my Facebook feed. We started having mutual friends, and I'm like, all right, Steve's doing something different now. He's kind of gotten away from this one-on-one concierge type of approach and, solving problems for rich people and creating experiences for rich people to doing something different, a different body of work that I also see you're doing with your son, which I think is super freaking cool. Anytime you can do stuff with your kids, right? Like, if secretly, I hope my kids, one of them wants to do business with me one day. They're real little. So, like, what are you up to right now in your life? What's your body of work look like?
I'm trying to rattle people. You see, when I came out of the concierge business, I'd made a lot of money. I'd made a lot of connections, and I wanted to know, okay, I've got here now, I've got a lot of the answers, but what's next? And I went out on a journey to educate myself. So exact same thing right at the beginning. I was talking to affluent people. I'm now trying to join groups, clubs, masterminds. And I found that I would pay 25 grand to get into a mastermind, only to have them on the first day trying to pitch me to upsell into the 50 grand mastermind or the one. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? I'm trying to get somewhere, and it was like a minefield. And so I started focusing on speaking. I never wanted to be a speaker. I never wanted to be a speaker.
Oh, really?
But I started, hell no. I didn't want to be a speaker. And then I started getting picked up. And it's funny, you're talking to an East London doorman who's literally traveling the planet. And I did 19 gigs this year that included Tokyo, Venice, Italy, Paris, London, all over America, Canada, and Mexico. 19 gigs, and I charge a lot of money to talk about communication. And that's funny as fuck to start with.
It is funny, isn't it?
But I'm talking about it because so many people are getting bad at it.
Yeah.
So the bottom line of it is, again, it's that aggravation. It started to piss me off, and I started to look around to find communities where we would support each other, challenge each other, push each other, celebrate each other's wins.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of those around. So I thought, well, if it's not around, build it. So we built Sims Distillery to be a community of challengers where we can bolster each other, support it. We're not cheerleaders. We're not there to go, oh, you can be wonderful. We're there to go, well, why the fuck do you think you can do that? Why do you think you have the secret sauce? And how can I help you get there?
Hell yeah.
And it's a totally different mindset to actually challenge people with blunt asked questions that are going to get them questioning themselves, not to deter them, but to refine them so they're sharp as shit when they get in the battlefield.
You're creating warriors, man. I mean, you are, right?
That's
it's
what
like,
I wanted to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and let's just be very honest. And, it's probably off top. It's probably not a good time to use war as an analogy because there's atrocious things happening on our planet right now. But business is very similar to war. And I use a lot of those analogies, and I always have as I relate to business. And one of the things that we always say is warrior up. Like, business is tough. And it takes not only support systems, but what I've found is those people that will, like your cohort and your colleagues at Sims Distillery, to not only call you on your BS, but hold you accountable to excellence in doing what you know you can do. Because the times, Steve, I don't know about you, but the times that I've advanced most as a professional or personally, I've had somebody coaching me. Like, I'm going to be a black belt in Taekwondo in about 45 days. I've had 3 years of somebody yelling at me and telling me what to do and competing and injuries and all of those things that I would not have done by myself. And a group of people that want me to be successful and I want them to be successful. And it's really cool because I felt the same freaking thing. I've been in some great masterminds, by the way. I've been in some where there wasn't this upsell, but I have been in some where I'm like, dude, I just paid to get pitched to. Like, what just happened? I'm like, hold on. I thought this was it. So that's beautiful, man. And I also like kind of the raw approach that you're taking with Sims Distillery. We have a mutual friend, or maybe he's a member of your mastermind, Clay Mosley. And I remember seeing pictures of him and Dave Folk, and they were in like a comedy club in Hollywood, I think. And it was very intimate. And I'm like, dude, that's way better than going to some freaking hotel's conference room where you just want to jump through the plate glass window and end it before it even starts. So even from the atmosphere.
We always believe that conference rooms, and again, we've all been to them, conference rooms are where creativity go to die.
Hell yeah, it is.
Everyone's got the same freaking little sandwiches and the beige walls, and it doesn't matter what conference room you're in, they all look the same.
Right.
And so when we started doing our retreats and our speakeasies, which is our version of a mastermind, we said right off the beginning, they're going to be in locations which spur creativity. So we've done them. Yeah, we did the one in Hollywood. We did in the Bourbon Room. We've done it in Frank Sinatra's music studio. We've done it we did it in Elon Musk's Gigafactory in Reno, and they literally move around. We did it in the Facebook headquarters overlooking the Hudson in New York. So we've done them in amazingly weird locations, and we're doing one. It's coming up in a few days. So
Nolans, right?
No one can go.
New Orleans or whatever? Is that where you're going?
We're doing it in New Orleans in an old prohibition room. And so we're always doing them in these weird, freaky kind of locations. And we never tell people. Now, I know this podcast is coming out once the event's gone on, but I'm telling you now, 40 people have paid me $2,000 a head, and they don't even know the location of the place.
That's what you call an Easter egg. Like you're building in Easter eggs into the
Yep.
whole experience, and you're a guy who created experiences, so you know what it's like to be on something that's like, hey, this is a retread of something that's already been done a million times. Or let's do
Yeah.
what one of my favorite mentors says, Seth Godin. Let's build something that's remarkable, a purple cow, something that people talk about. That's
Yep.
not this just, hey, rinse, repeat what everybody does, take the money, go hang out. No, like let's build work that's worth doing.
Yeah.
Like the real
Yeah.
work.
No, he's
you know?
got it right. You got to
He's got it
surprise,
right.
the purple cow analogy, we've all read that, and anyone that hasn't has to. But we all know that it's very easy to get on the monotony train. You've got to surprise, you've got to shock. In today's world, those that have your attention have your business. And
Yeah.
you're not going to get someone's attention by giving something that somebody else gave last month and someone else the month before.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and you got to keep reinventing yourself. I want to talk about your book, Go for Stupid. What's it about? And you shared with me that you're giving everybody who listens to the show and everybody else who will apply it basically free access to this book, which is freaking amazing.
100%. Yeah. And there's
Beautiful.
no upsell. It is for free. We launched I wrote the book during COVID because I got pissed off. I got pissed off because so many people were like bitching about, oh, what do I binge watch on Netflix? This was a phenomenal time for us to get sharper. This was a brilliant time for us to stand still and go, okay, am I where I wanted to be 5 years ago, and where am I heading? We could literally change our path during COVID, and so many people wasted it.
Yeah.
And so at that time, we came up with the gotcha society and the cancel culture, where we actually became terrified to say the wrong thing or terrified to try something in case we were laughed at. Now, Larry Page, Elon Musk, Walt Disney, Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama, any of these people, they're not frightened of being laughed at. Yep. They actually go out and go, I'm going to do this, and they pull it off. So I started writing articles on blogs, and someone said you should turn it into a book, and I did. And I released it. Clay was at the event.
Oh, cool.
I released it in October, literally a year ago. It became a bestseller in 2 hours.
Wow.
Then it went to pay. Yeah, no, I was shocked as
Yeah,
well.
that's awesome, man.
And the one thing, and we joked about this earlier, is anyone that's ever listened to an audio book has no idea what the author has to do. Doing an audio book is painful. You are in something the size of a Portaloo, and you've just got to read this book, flicking through an iPad. It's horrible. So I thought to myself, I'm not going to do an audio book. I'm in Hollywood. Fuck it, let's get a studio. So I got a studio, and I actually I read the book on video. And then what we did was we obviously scraped the audio, turned that into the audio book. But now I'm left with all 12 chapters on video. So I went, we'll give them away. So if you go to goforstupid.com, you can actually watch all 12 chapters for free. The only thing I ask you is to do something with it.
Yeah.
Don't waste it. I'm not selling you it. It's a video and it's free of charge. Hit it on 3 times speed. Get through that baby and implement it.
What do you think? What's the biggest thing that people will take away from that? Because people get book This is like the 3rd book I've heard of today that somebody said, hey, add this to your reading list. I actually have it in my email. I just have not listened yet. What can listeners expect to take from Go for Stupid? Like, what's your general premise there?
It's going to piss you off. It's going to piss. No, seriously.
Yeah?
It's going to piss you off for a variety of reasons.
Okay.
One, nothing in there. And I pulled from people that I've worked with, Elton John, Elon Musk, Richard Branson. Nothing in there is hard to do.
Right.
But for some reason, people come up with excuses not to do it.
Yep.
So the first thing you're going to realize is that anything in here you can do. The second thing you're going to get is that you're going to suddenly be confronted quite boldly with, why aren't you? You want this, but you're not doing the work. And the work's not hard, so why the fuck aren't you? The bottom line of it is going to piss you off to the point that it's simple ways of you being able to set realistic goals. And 9 times out of 10, your goals are holding you back.
Right.
Because you goal too low.
Yes.
If you've got a goal of making $500,000 next year, then why don't you write a goal for $2.5 million, fail, and make $1.5 million?
Right.
You know,
right.
You go too low. So I run through how to establish your goals and then how to reverse engineer the structure required to actually achieve those ridiculous goals. And again, when you're looking at this, you're going to look at me, you're going to hear me, and you're going to know if a bricklayer from East London could be doing it, well, you're already out of excuses.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's beautiful, man. I want to talk about what you guys are doing to help other companies outside of Sims and Story. You got your book, Go for Stupid. Super cool that you're giving that content away. You're doing some stuff working with your son and helping other people understand like branding and things like that. And guys, you'll be able to see in the show notes when you go to Steve's website. It is very well done. And I'm a brand guy. I love seeing like well articulated personal brands because sometimes it's really hard to go talk about yourself. Like actually, that's probably the hardest project somebody can do is go work on their personal brand, right? Like it's very uncomfortable to go to your .com and start playing with the text because what we talked about earlier, if you're actually somebody who's achieved stuff, typically you're a little bit modest because you've also had a shit ton of failures and you've had scars and you're like, you're afraid somebody might take it away. It's like, well, right? Like I've got this, but I don't want to lose my traction. Is that kind of what you guys are focused on, is helping people like communicate their brands, or what is it that you and your son are up to? And first of all, how's it going working together?
The good thing is I partnered with Henry.
Yeah.
The good thing is he just happens to be my son.
Okay.
So
got it.
Henry brings a completely different tempo, vibrance, and frequency to what I have. Beautiful. And of course, on some days of the week, they clash.
Sure.
And on the rest of the week, it's like a fine-tuned Formula One machine. Beautiful. So, but we both agree the brand comes down to one word: clarity. And it's the miscommunication and the misinformation that you're providing. As you say, when someone says, hey, I'm going to build my own personal brand, all of a sudden they start coming out with this kind of copy or these Photoshopped pictures, and they end up raising confusion. So we, first of all, whenever we speak with people, is to remove the confusion from your brand and to expose the clarity. Now, I don't care if you're good looking. I don't care if you're beautiful, if you're a supermodel. Yeah. I care that you are the solution to somebody else's problem. And if I can expose that we are the solution to your problem, and this is why, in just 2 points, then everything else is just regardless. It's just fluff. No one cares. And today, you need to know one thing. In fact, I'll give you an example. A friend of mine is a comedian, and he knows that I was doing a lot more on stages. And he said, look, I want to help you become a better speaker on stages. And comedians are brilliant at timing. Absolutely. So that's why a lot of good speakers, they go to comedy clubs and they learn their art from that. And he said, look, the first thing that anyone teaches you when you're a speaker is to know your audience. And I said, yeah, everyone knows that. You know, you've got to know your audience. He said, well, the downside about speakers is you don't get to select who comes on before you, who is, in a sense, your warm-up act. So when a comedian or a performer goes on stage, there's always the warm-up act to get them in the right mood. Right. When you're a speaker, and I've had this, and I'm sure you have, you go on stage and the person before you sucks.
Right, they're done. Yeah,
and you're like I've now got to get the client up. So my comedian friend taught me the 2 things: 1, know your audience; 2, know the temperature of the room.
Oh, yeah.
If the room's pissed off, well, you've got to get them back up to 0 before you can take them where you need. But if you don't identify that temperature, then you can't communicate with them. And if the first person's told you a sob story and you go on there and you start cracking a joke and no one's laughing, it's not because the joke wasn't funny, but the room wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So you've got to go in and you've got to understand the temperature in order to be able to have the conversation. If you are putting anything out there in this digital world, what's the temperature of your clients?
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the moment, we've got, as you've just said, we've got war. We've got hostility. We've got war in different countries. Yeah. We've got political, lies that we're now about to get into as we get into the political
election year.
train.
Woo!
It's election year. We're going to be, conspiracies and he said, she said, that person's evil. We are going to be surrounded by that. So understand the temperature of your client when you're communicating with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that we teach people when we're teaching them about media, branding, is how to breathe clarity.
Man. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's like you got to be able to read the room. And that's something I even teach our kids. They're 9 and 11. And the 9-year-old or the 11-year-old starting to get it. He's almost 12. I'm like, you got to, you just started middle school. I'm like, basically, you just went to Gladiator Academy in my opinion. As a 6th grader, you're in there with 8th graders. It's a whole different world, and it's kind of like being on the yard in prison. I've never been in prison, but it's going to be feast or famine, and a lot of precedent's going to be set here. And I said, a lot of what's going to be help you be successful is to read the room when you come in. Is your teacher in a good mood? How are your classmates doing? And the more that you can relate to individuals on where they are, and then try to be a bucket filler and invest in them and try to help their boat rise, like that's going to mean you're going to have a good life. Like that's what I figured out in life. And you said something earlier that I want to kind of wrap up on, but it is something that I think you and I share, and we haven't talked about this, but you said something. You talked about curiosity earlier. Yeah. I have that word written on my wall. I've given a TEDx talk about curiosity. I believe that curiosity is the key to a life well lived. That if you are a curious individual, you're always going to challenge yourself to do more. You're going to genuinely care about others and be like, relate to others pretty well, right? What do you think about curiosity as kind of like a way to go through life?
I've spoken to hundreds of the top most successful people in the planet, and there's various statements that they make, but there's a consistency in one thread. They're all curious. Why does it have to be done like this? How could? Yeah. And I don't care. And there's cultural differences. You speak to someone about success in Korea, that cultural success is very different to Moscow, to London, to Dubai, to Los Angeles. Everyone has a different paradigm parameter of what success is, but they all carry the same thing. How can I make this work more efficient? How can I make my margins better? Why does it have to be done? Now, I'll also tweak one more thing that you just said. You mentioned prison, but you'd never been to prison. I've been 16 times.
Okay.
The good thing is I've been allowed out on the same day.
I've been twice. I've been twice. I've been to prison twice. Okay. I had dinner with or lunch with prisoners. So yeah, I've been as well. Just never checked in. So keep going.
Yeah. You say about that curiosity. Yeah. I wanted to know how good I was at communicating. And so I decided to put myself into an arena where I would be really challenging myself to find any kind of relatability with people that have nothing to do with me. So I joined a group called Defy Ventures, and I take about 40 entrepreneurs 3 to 4 times a year into a level 4 maximum security prison. And you are not in a level 4 because you didn't pay your parking ticket.
Right.
I'm on about cartels, serials, there's a lot of people in there. And I'm in these locations having conversations, and I've gone in there, I've taken Tim Ferriss, Cameron Harold, Jason Gaynard was the guy that introduced me to it. So powerful people. And I've taken a lot of high-end entrepreneurs into rooms where they're with gang leaders and major drug cartel leaders, and we're having conversations. When you can have a conversation about positivity in that kind of environment, when you come out, you're the king of the hill with communication. So I do challenge you, use your curiosity to push yourself into uncomfortable locations.
Oh yeah. That's what causes growth.
Every
100%.
time.
It's like if you can go in, like I carry this around. It says dream big. This is full.
Yep.
These are my notes. Like I get real emotional and I use like coloring and stuff. That's how I think. I'm a creative person. And in here are things that scare the living hell out of me. And that's why I'm executing on them. Because this is the safe day to day stuff, right? Over here is like, hey, let's do stuff that is like super scary. Like I became a race car driver 2 weekends ago, driving wheel to wheel with other people on Road America, the track in Wisconsin, 4 miles,
Right track.
110 miles an hour. And that scared me in a very healthy way, right? In a very healthy, exhilarating way. And now it's like, okay, that was something new. That added another level of, yes, I can do hard stuff and type of, to your life resume. And that's, I think, that's where curiosity kind of comes to a life well lived. It causes you to jump into the race car. It causes you to call the Louvre or whatever. It causes you to do shit that you wouldn't normally do. It causes you to go for stupid.
Very well put. Very well put.
Cause you to go for stupid. If people want to go pick this free book up, not if. Guys, if you're listening to my show, you actually are sticking with me and you care about what we're doing here. And when I told you guys that I heard about this gentleman, I feel like it was a long time ago. I'm going to go tell you, go get this free videos, the books that he's going to give you. This is a great opportunity. This guy is stellar in solving problems, creating experiences, cutting through the bullshit. So, Steve, where do they go to get the goods, man?
Easy. GoForStupid.com, or they can head over to Steve D Sims. Don't forget the D for dashing, and there's only one M in Sims. SteveDSims.com, or follow me on Instagram, Steve D Sims, or anywhere you get your social. Those are the best places.
He's the handsome-looking guy that looks a lot like me. We go to the same barber. He's able to grow facial hair longer, and I don't have my piercings in anymore. So other than that, we're basically twins. I'm going to say we're both like solid 8s. I'm going to give us both 8 on a scale from 1 to 10.
I thank you very much. I will take that.
Steve, you've been a pleasure to have on, and I don't say that lightly. Thank you so much for taking time. Thanks for the gift that you've given to our audience. And moreover, and I don't say this lightly, thank you for building shit that matters. Because we live in a world where there's a bunch of commoditized stuff being offered to people, particularly people that are in our circle, which are people that are trying to make something that matters in the world, entrepreneurs. They're trying to create something which arguably is one of the most challenging things that you can do from a vocation perspective. And there's a lot of hucksters out there in the world. And so from one entrepreneur to another, thank you for creating spaces for entrepreneurs to come together in a safe environment. Knowing that I have friends that have paid to be in your rooms says volumes to the types of rooms that you're putting together. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, I'm your host, Kevin Oldham. Have a phenomenal week and be well.